So let's listen in now to another seminar where we're talking about this principle of acid and alkaline and how it can make a massive difference in not only the quality of your life, but the amount of energy you experience day to day. Here we go.
Thank you. Well, I came back. I missed you. What can I say? I came back because I wanted to give you an update, an idea of some of the newest distinctions that I've made. If you've been involved with my work at all, you probably have been exposed to some of the principles. How many of you read Unlimited Power? Say aye. If you did, I talked about some of the fundamental principles of living health there. And my goal is really to get you to see you don't have to be afraid of bugs. You don't have to worry that in the middle of your New Year's, some bug is going to wreck your holiday. Okay? That it's really not how it works. So what I thought maybe we'd do is show you a little bit of how we get to pollute our environment. And the way we get our environment polluted is we get out of balance. And you all know that. What happens during the holidays? If you weren't out of balance before, now you're totally out of balance. How many can relate to this? Say aye. And that balance is not just the balance that comes from, eating too much. It's all of the stresses we create inside of ourselves which innervate us. But they also do something else that I didn't understand at the level of science before. I understood it anecdotally. But science is now showing us some pretty extraordinary things that can help us to know precisely where we break down. Now, to give you an example, think of what your body is. Your body is really this unique system that's working on basically electrical currents tied with magnetism. So think of it as electromagnetism that's actually running you. All the nerves of your body send signals through electricity. There are electrical signals, pulses of electricity. All the cells, all the organs of your body, when they're alive, to be healthy, you gotta have healthy cells. They gotta be totally energetic. To be totally energetic, they have to have electrical power. What makes that electrical power happen is what we have is a delicate balance in our biochemistry. Chemistry makes the environment possible for electricity to be there. Anything that's gonna mess up that electrical balance is gonna mess up your cells, is gonna mess up your organs, is gonna mess up your life. So if all these organs in our bodies have this need to send electricity, in fact, nerve signals are nothing but electrical pulses again, then what we gotta figure out is what would mess that up. And then what we're gonna do here this afternoon is walk you through the easy ways to make it so your inner environment is totally in balance on a consistent basis. Even when you take it out of balance. This weekend took you out of balance. Because what you've done is you've done the thing that creates breakdown in the body that you've probably been doing for years before you got here, but this weekend may have added to it. And that is the creation of acid. Acid in our systems creates a breakdown of the delicate balance in our biochemistry. Now, you turn on your television, you can't miss a million commercials or somebody comes on and says, I ate the whole thing, Alka-Seltzer. Remember those old ads? Or now these days, they don't do that. Now they don't wait till after you're in pain. They go, look, I'm gonna eat this Pepsin AC and then it won't hurt. And what is Pepsin AC and all these things? They are antacids. See, if we're eating so well, if we're so smart, how come we're taking all these antacids like they're coming out of our ears? The reason is because we live an acid lifestyle in modern times. Most industrialized nations live acid. Now, what creates acid in the system? Well, the first thing that creates acid is emotions, anger, resentment, frustration. You can take, and in fact, I encourage you to go by your local drugstore and get some of those little pH strips. Those pH strips, you probably have seen them. They're like yellow, and you put it on your tongue for a few seconds, so you can do it with your urine, and then you put it against colors, and it shows you how acid or alkaline you are. Now, why is this important? Let me clarify this first. Your body, to maintain this powerful, energetic, electrical current in you, has got to have a certain pH, a certain basis of what's called acid and alkaline in the system. It is as important as maintaining the temperature of your body. Your body has to stay at what temperature? Quick. 98.6. Well, here's the other number you better know. On a scale from 1 to 14, 1 is pure acid, burn a hole in steel, and 14 is purely alkaline. The middle then, the balance would be 7. Our bodies need to be at 7.36. That's the ideal, which is slightly alkaline. Now, there are portions of your body, like your stomach, has hydrochloric acid in it, and in that area, right, you're gonna have more acid. But I'm talking about your blood. The blood, which is the river of life. What takes the oxygen everywhere? The blood. You know, what brings the nutrients? The blood. The blood is the basic source of everything. So your blood has gotta be at 7.36. In fact, this is so important, guys, that if this figure were to vary 1 or 2 points, you would die instantly. Because what happens is it would change the chemistry where there'd be no electrical power. And imagine an electrical power plant that somebody unplugged. Everything stops. Your organs, your cells, everything shuts down. You're dead. That's how important alkalinity is to your body. Now, most people, though, are constantly testing the body's ability to do this. For example, we go to a cold environment, what does our body do? It compensates, right? It figures out what to do to try and speed up, try and get that warmth to the body so that we can survive. The same thing happens when you take in a lot of acidity in your body. Your body rushes to figure out how to deal with this. Now, the way the body deals with excess acid, and again, what brings acid to the body? Emotions is the first thing that most people never even think about. When you worry, I mean, how does it feel when you worry? What does your body feel like? Can you feel that kind of feeling inside your body, like something's churning? You're creating acids in the system. By the way, conversely, Norman Cousins, who, God bless his soul, an amazing man who was here in Los Angeles, right, teaching at UCLA. If you remember, he cured himself of disease through laughter therapy. He'd watch for 8 hours a day all these funny films that cracked him up, and he laughed his way back to health because you can also, through your emotions, can you stimulate your immune system? Can you release positive endorphins, yes or no? So when you're talking about my lifestyle, I know people all the time who are so rigid about what they're gonna eat, and they're stressed every moment about it. And I'm looking at them going, they are not gonna be healthy because they're creating acid continuously, which guess what acid does? It strips or weakens the electrical charges around red blood cells. So for example, and I'm getting a little technical, but please stay with me and I think this will make sense for you. Here's a red blood cell. What does a red blood cell do? Carries what? Oxygen. So you got all these red blood cells in your body. Blood cells, in order to function, have a certain biochemistry, and in order to do that, to have electrical charges. The outside of a blood cell has a negative charge. The reason it has a negative charge is it keeps the blood cells from doing what? Anybody know? Sticking together. If the blood cells stick together, what's going to happen? They're going to suddenly go through the bloodstream more slowly, through the body more slowly, so you're going to get less oxygen. All these little red blood cells got to make it all the way down to little capillaries. Some places they have to go one at a time. So all of a sudden, imagine you got your body full of sludge. And by the way, that's how most people feel. They sludge through life. Because if you see the red blood cells, they're all clumped together. Now, what happens is the inside of your red blood cell has a positive charge. So when acid comes along, you have an acid diet, which I'm going to talk about also, acid emotions, acid lifestyle. The acid comes by and it mitigates, it strips or weakens this charge, sometimes takes it completely away. So what do you think these cells start to do? They start to clump together. As that happens, your energy goes through the floor. But that's not the only problem. These cells start to weaken. Does that make sense? They're not as strong as they need to. And as the environment becomes more and more acidic, they not only weaken, but they die. When they die, they release their own acids into the bloodstream. So now you're compounding it. Now remember the example I gave you of pouring water in a glass and you keep pouring and pretty soon it overflows? Well, when you keep pouring acid in the system and it starts destroying cells more rapidly than your body's used to, all that acid builds up to the point where now the environment is really polluted. And what got worse, you basically have negative momentum. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Till pretty soon you don't know why you have all these aches and pains. Aches and pains are acid. It's a lack of oxygen and acid. And you can find it in any part of your body. So what we've got to do is we've got to maintain this balance. You know what your body does? Your body's intelligent. It's ready for this. It's designed for this. Except it's not really designed for what we do to it. Our bodies were not designed for us to be able to process every food the way we do in modern times. And to take in the things that we drink and eat that have no basis in nature whatsoever. So we're putting all this acid in. So the body does, it says, my God, we have an emergency here. We've got to solve this. So the body uses stores of alkalinity to neutralize the acid. You have alkaline reserves, they're called. So the body knows how to do that. But here's the problem. If you keep putting more acid in than the body can deal with, pretty soon, what do you think happens to your reserves? They go down. Pretty soon you don't have any reserves. Now you're in a dangerous situation. Now you're going to start having a major dis-ease start to affect your body. What makes it bad, what tears the process down, other than your initial genetic weakness, is the acid. And whether your genetic weakness is affected or not, is acids go to the weakest part of the body. And so they weaken something that's already in trouble. Is this making sense to you? Okay? It's such an important understanding. So, guess where the body now goes to survive? It takes these acids out of the bloodstream and into the fats of the body, because that takes the acid away from the vital organs of the body. Because if it gets in the vital organs, you got real problems. Now, what if your genetic tendency is not to hold much fat? People that are fat tend to actually be a little bit more healthy very often if their arteries aren't clogged, because they can deal with more of the acid than somebody who's skinny, interestingly enough. And you can see this in people's blood if you study it. So what happens, it goes into fat. Now, by the way, picture this. This is the average person that I see. Let's say a woman is an example. She really is committed to her body. The culture has created these anchors that women focus even more on it than men do. Unfairly, by the way. So this woman really wants to make this change. So she really does a really good diet. She really makes all these shifts. And she says, I gotta exercise. But she's so stressed about it, she's creating an immense amount of what? Right? Secondly, when she exercises to extreme because she's sick and tired of being overweight. And I'm gonna get a trainer, and I'm gonna kick butt, I'm gonna do whatever I can. So she produces massive exercise with massive amounts of lactic what? Probably exercises anaerobically, more than likely. Can you over-exercise, yes or no? Oh, yes. And so now all this additional acid's in her body. And she says, wait a second, it can't be my metabolism because I'm not eating a bunch and I'm working out like a maniac. I'll tell you what it is. You're not over fat, you're over acid. You will not let go of the fat no matter how much you exercise, no matter how much you eat right, if you do not create an environment that is more alkaline. You can't. It's a survival tool. Now, I was with the gentleman who introduced this concept to me. I was with a group of doctors from all over the world, from Russia, from Korea, from all over the place. And I went through a week with him studying people's blood. And I just did it as an amateur. I'm not a doctor. There's nothing I can use, but I like to understand this stuff with precision. I'm a maniac for that. And while I was there, a group of his patients came in. He's a microbiologist, right? And they came in one after another, and we saw the before and after of their blood after they began to what I'm going to ask you to do, which is alkalize and energize your body. We're going to make sure you get a lot more alkalinity in your diet and in your fluids so that your body can deal with this and not have to pull from your reserves. While we're there, he started showing us what happens here in this situation. He shows us examples. You know, when people get older, very often they shrink. Do you ever wonder why that happens? Do you think it's like, oh, it's just our way back into the ground? We came out of it, went our way up? No. The reason is because when a person lives an acid lifestyle, after you go through your reserves and after you store in the fat, guess what's next? It needs calcium. And so it leaches it from your bones continuously. And so your bones get weaker and weaker and you get more and more compressed. It's like stealing bone mass almost as a metaphor. It's not exactly how it is from your body. There's no reason for you to shrink, just to give you a clue. Okay? The only reason you shrink is because your bones are weak because you're so acidic and your body is leaching from it. And you'll begin to break down in all kinds of other ways too. Your muscles get flabby because acid eats it away. And there are other elements also that affect this to give you an idea. But here's what was really fascinating. I saw so many changes in people that were so dramatic, it would sound like, you know, a religious revival, but they're in this doctor's office and all these other doctors studying it. And one woman, which was really neat because she's been studied since she was 14 years old by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, which is the place that you get the definitive answers in the United States anyway. And so the National Institutes of Health studied her and her entire family, but her personally since she was 14, this woman. She's now 37 years old. The reason her family's been studied is because they have hypercholesterol. There's no one in her family with less than 450 in cholesterol. Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, around 200 would be reasonable. 450 is off the chart. I mean, you're a walking heart attack, basically, right? So, and by the way, that's what's happened. Her father died at 43, her mother died at 41, her sister died at 39, she's 37. And the NIH and the University of Utah both have studied her, but the NIH since 14, and they've tried to use their family as an example, and they tried every diet they could on them, every kind of treatment you can imagine. They put them on low cholesterol, no cholesterol diets. And their cholesterol still rises or stays the same. They've never been able to reduce it. This woman has been doing what I'm going to show you today, alkalizing and energizing. practicing everything I was teaching before, but adding the focus of alkalinity to her diet. Drinking a green type of drink that brings more alkalinity into the body. She's dropped 50 pounds in the last 6 weeks. She's never been able to lose weight. Why? She had so much what in her body quick. So her body's hanging on to it. Now the body's alkaline, it's just let going like crazy, and she's not working out half as hard or anything like that. But the second thing is she's lost already 190 points off her cholesterol in 6 weeks. Nowhere in her entire, it deserves a hand, I agree. Let's give her a hand. All right? What's cool about this is it's, documented by the NIH, because sometimes individual researchers do their thing and people go, so it's really outstanding to be able to see that. So why would her cholesterol go down though? Cholesterol, you don't need any more cholesterol. Your body, as most of us know, makes cholesterol. The only reason you get additional cholesterol is you're eating animal products. So you're eating the cholesterol of other creatures and putting it in your body. So with their dead mass, you're taking their cholesterol. All right? Doesn't this sound attractive? Okay? But here's the real problem. You get your body where your blood, you put more acid in. Your blood's got to stay at 7.36 or real close, right? So it's got to do something. Now, it tries to use your fat stores. It tries to your alkaline reserves. It tries to do anything to balance it out. Let's say that you've maxed out those things, and all this acid is going to run through your arteries. What will they do to what will acid do to your arteries? It'll burn a hole in it like that. You'd be dead. You can't have arteries with holes in them, right? So the body says, we need a binding agent. We need something to grab a hold of this acid and protect the arterial wall. So it secretes or gathers, if you've had additional cholesterol, the cholesterol, and it puts it on the wall to protect the sensitive linings from all the acid. And by the way, there's no downside of that if you were to then change your diet. But if you keep being acid, the body keeps adding cholesterol till pretty soon there's no room for the blood to go through. But it's like, do I die now or do I got a chance of survival? Does this make sense to you? I mean, this is breakthrough stuff. Now, let me tell you why I'm telling you this and why I found out about this, because I've lived a pretty energetic lifestyle for most of my life, prided myself that I can rock the house, whether it's 2,000 people or whether it's 20,000, for as long as the day can go by. And I did it because years ago I made a huge shift in my life, which is this dietary approach that I'm describing to you, and this lifestyle approach. And I freed myself of the fear, which took away some of the acid by itself. Right? You heard earlier I described I was always afraid early in my life I was going to die of cancer. That'll create some nice acid for you. So what happened for me is I started to get to the point where I was using much more of my mind for the energy as opposed to my body. Can anybody relate to that? And it's like it's more mental energy and like will. Like I get on stage and crank, but it wasn't like I feel now. It's just like that just feels effortless. It was more like, am I going to do one more song? Kind of like a lot of you were thinking over this weekend, right? So what happened was I had this mindset of, I'm an Adonis and I'm humble about it. I've got this energy, I want to kick butt, take names. And what happened for me is it started like by the end of a program, I was wiped. But you know how things happen gradually? So you don't quite notice? It's kind of like, the old metaphor, you put the frog in warm water and you turn up the water slowly, it'll boil to death. The old metaphor. You put it in boiling water, it jumps right out. Well, most of us, our challenges come so slowly that we adjust each stage and we don't realize what we've lost. And it's like I feel when I do the Living Health seminar, I'm almost like trying to tell someone what a rose smells like who's never really smelled one. Because most people have never given themselves the gift of that kind of dynamic energy. They've never had it because no one taught them how to have that. And that's my real goal in being here. I want you to realize, I want you to experience that nothing tastes as good as fit, healthy, and vital feels. Nothing. And once you feel that, you'll get addicted to that feeling, and it will change every aspect of your life, your relationships, your finances, everything. Because here we are living in this culture where people value everything more than their body. Their money, their career, we'll do anything for our kids, right? All these other things. And what's the last thing that shows up? Our bodies. And thank God that our bodies are as strong as they are, but we deserve to have them at full tilt. So for me, as I started to feel this little bit of loss, so I thought, okay, I know what the problem is. I'm getting toxic. I'm exerting more energy, right, on an ongoing basis than I'm building back up. I'm not sleeping, and I'm not resting, and I'm go the whole time, and I just need to balance out and cleanse my system. So I decided to do that. Now, I know quite a bit about a variety of sciences that have to do with how to study the blood, and there's quite a bit of research that's been done overseas. And there's a certain type of microscope in the past called a dark field microscope. Dark field microscopy, I guess is how they pronounce it. And so years ago I had that, and it allows you to see what you don't see in a traditional blood test. It allows you to see that your blood, unlike traditional science tells you, is not sterile. It's like another universe with all these creatures moving around inside of it. But what's interesting is there's a new microscope out now called an ultralight microscope that allows you to see even deeper. And what you also can see is things like candida or yeast in your blood, parasites. You can see everything, and it's very visual. So before I went on this cleanse, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go look at my blood so I can see how bad it is, and also so I can feel the victory afterwards and see it clean up. So I found out about this place that did this new form of microscope work. I went down, looked at my blood. My white blood cells were ripped open and like leaking out. They weren't moving at the pace they're supposed to move. You know, and my immune system's broken down, which probably was how I was feeling inside. I was feeling run down. And I'm thinking, God, you know, I know I eat well and all that stuff, but I thought, no, I'm not. I'm going full tilt. I'm not breathing. I'm not doing the other things that are so important. And I'm exercising like a maniac on top of it, right? Because I want to be fit. And so I looked at this, and then what was interesting about it is I was also full of candida. Now, what yeast do in your bloodstream is they eat all your glucose, which is all your energy storage, right? All your sugar. So what that does is you eat and you're never satisfied because you're not getting the nutrients. Remember, taking in nutrition doesn't mean anything. If you don't have proper digestion and assimilation, you have no nutrition. So what happens is along the way, the yeast consume it. So I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but I would find myself, I was so busy, I wouldn't eat all day long. Then about 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I was ready to eat a human. I was like, I gotta have something, man. I get that state where you gotta have something. How many can relate? Come on, say aye. That's because your blood sugar is where? Through the floor, right? So I'd find that, and it created a lot of stress, and it created my energy being super high, and then boom, I'd hit a crash point, man, and I would crash if I didn't go do something. So all of a sudden, I look at this thing and I can see why. It's eating it all up. And by the way, you know what yeast does once it eats all your sugar? If you don't give it enough sugar, which it demands, your cravings for sugar are the little creatures inside of you demanding it. If you got a lot of acid addictions right now, as acid addictions are like cigarettes or alcohol or coffee, where you got to have it, and you get yourself alkaline, this is not a willpower thing. You won't go through the headaches and all that crap people do. That headaches is all the acid that's released back into your body now as you start to cleanse. It's in the cells, in the fat. And when you stop giving acid, the body goes, all right, we got a chance to get rid of this stuff. Put it in the blood and let's get it out. When it puts it back in the blood, you get this headache and you're detoxifying, it's called. I'm going to show you how you can detoxify without all the pain, which is really wonderful, by having enough alkalinity to deal with those things. Does that sound good? It's really important. Really important. So anyway, the point of the matter is, I look at my blood, and I got candida in there, so no wonder my energy's not as high. Sure, I'm living well, supposedly. Now, what caused the candida? That's the part I want to understand. Because look at me, I eat really well. I really do. I thought, well, you know, candida is feeding on sugar. I don't eat sugar. But, you know, I'm vegetarian. And I see a lot of vegetarians. And meat eaters always look at them and go, I don't want to look like that. Well, that's because they're eating tofu and drinking milk and eating cheese and eating all that crap that's horrible for them, but also they eat all kinds of carbohydrates that convert into sugar, and sugar ultimately, taken in mass, becomes acid in the system. It has an acid ash. So does protein, has an acid ash. You go, what's left to eat? You know, don't tell me you're going to talk to me about veggies, are you? We're not getting there, are we? Yep. But I also want to show you how you can have like a big salad, drink a green drink, and get most of your alkalinity from that, so you can still have the foods you have, maybe in hopefully a little bit smaller quantity, because you won't desire it as much as you become more alkaline and more balanced. The point of the matter is, I started looking at this and going, boy, I know what it is it's the pastas, it's the carbs, and I always had fruit from breakfast till noon. I've taught people that for years. I'm dead wrong about that. And the reason I'm dead wrong about that, and I didn't know, and it served me well, because fruit cleansed me, it was great, gave me energy. What I didn't realize was we live in a society where most of our food is processed. And as we're eating all this processed food, we're getting so much acid that eating a bunch of fruit on top of it adds that much more sugar and creates more candida. How many follow that? Okay? So I'm not saying fruit's not good. I'm saying you don't want to consume excess amounts of it, especially if you've got a diet that has lots of other carbs in it, because you're creating an environment. Now follow me. We'll come full circle now. You're creating an environment that these little creatures will proliferate. Right? Because they got a feeding ground. right? The rats don't come till there's enough trash to feed them. When there's all this trash, they're going to come. And once they get there, they tell their friends, right? They camp out. And they grow and expand and create more of a problem, don't they? So you don't want to create trash inside. Trash inside starts with the acid. And then it starts to create more and more challenges. And as we do this, as we become more acidic, as we get more sugar in our bloodstream, we create the things that suck our energy away. As I started to say, when they're done with your sugars, these yeast start to eat your proteins. They start to literally break down your soft tissues and your muscle mass. So if you're real flabby and all that stuff, you know, I don't know the real statistic. There are books that claim, there's some scientists that now claim that as much as 70% of the population is infected with yeast and candida. I mean, it sounds to me extreme, except when you look at the lifestyle of most people, then you go, maybe it's not extreme. But you can find out very easily by doing a blood test, and you got to cleanse it out. The good news is you can cleanse it out easily. All you got to do is alkalize the bloodstream, because this environment that the yeast grows in has to be acidic, right? It's the environment, guys. It's always the environment. And the good news is we're in total control of that. And by the way, even your teeth, think about this. If you talk to your dentist has been educated, they'll tell you sugar doesn't burn holes in teeth. It's the sugar as it metabolizes into acid, which all sugars do, it drills a hole in your teeth. It's the acid that does that. Now imagine that acid going through your organs, through your tissues. Imagine that you have a genetic strengths and weaknesses. If yours is in the prostate, gentlemen, the acid will go there. And that's where you're going to experience the biggest problem. If it's in your breast that's that situation for a woman, it's going to go there. It's going to go wherever your weak point is. If your liver's weak, it's going to go there. The weakest part of your body is where the acids will settle, because that part of the body can't clean up the mess as quickly. Does that make sense? And so then you pay the price in your weak place. So you must be alkaline. That's this whole conversation is, number one, how do we alkalize the body? Why do we alkalize the body? Because we've got to have the 7.36. And again, you can do this. You can go pick up all those things, put it in your mouth, and see where you are. So anyway, the point of the matter is, I went and got this blood test to finish the story. I said, what do I do? They said, here's the things you should do. And they said, in 30 days, you can have this totally turned around. I said, show me some examples. So they showed me before and after of people's blood. Being visual, that convinced me. So I said, great. Showed me one who had breast cancer and what her blood looked like. And it scared me because mine was moving in that direction, that kind of breakdown. And they showed me 30 days later and blood was perfect, right? And she's fine. So I went and did this for 30 days, and I went and had the blood test again, because I'm not a believer in, like, I've never promoted supplements, because most of it is expensive urine. 90% of it just goes straight through you. Your body can't digest it. It's not absorbed. So I went 30 days later, and I looked at my blood, and my blood was perfect. No candida in the system, white blood cells perfect. I knew that before I got there because I felt better than I could remember feeling in probably 5 or 6 years. And I think I feel pretty awesome. But I remembered how good I felt before that I'd gradually forgotten. So everything I taught before is totally in alignment with creating alkalinity, except eating fruit in the morning till noon. And I've been teaching that for years, so I was an idiot. I apologize. But it really worked for me. I mean, it worked at the time. But it has a cumulative effect if you're doing all these other things too. So I'm not suggesting you can't eat fruit. And I'm going to now become very specific about the principles. But I wanted to give you this overview. Does this make sense to you? Okay? Now I want to tell you one other thing. There's 2 words, alkalize and energize. Alkalinity, you now understand how important it is. How important is it? It's life and death. That's how important it is. You got too much acid, are you likely going to have difficulty losing weight unless you have a genetic tendency not to keep weight at all? Yes or no? I guarantee you're not going to be able to lose weight if you keep your body in an acid place. Or if you lose weight, it'll be temporary and you'll gain it back. So you got to understand, this alkalinity is the whole thing. So you got to alkalize and you got to energize. Now what does energize mean? It means, remember, every organ in your body works on this microelectricity, this electrical magnetic frequency. And all of that is happening in your system. When you're eating foods only provide value when they can be converted into the elements necessary for this chemistry that allows electrical charges to continue. Food actually gets to the organs through these little electrical charges. It's how things are moved around within the system. Are all foods equal? Like, are all carbohydrates equal in the amount of electrical, alive energy in them? Yes or no? Your common sense knows the answer to that is no. Absolutely not. So we must avoid foods that take away more energy than they provide. Your body operates on a subtle electromagnetic current. Nerve signals are in fact electrical charges. Your brain, your heart, all the organs in your body really emit these fields of electrical current. And your cells communicate with each other through pulses of electricity. When we eat food, our food breaks down into the food particles to their smallest size called colloidals. A colloidal is the smallest possible form of a nutrient particle size. The usual size is, I don't know how to pronounce it, certain microns in diameter. These nutrient particles are then carried to cells via electrical charges. If we eat something, guys, that's lifeless, that really doesn't have the electrical charges in it any longer, then you're not going to get the energy that your body deserves. So you won't get, as I said here, the food itself is taking more energy than it's giving if it doesn't give you enough electrical charges. So for example, what kind of electrical charge is available in chocolate cake in megahertz? 1 to 3. Now, by the way, a tumor has 30 electrical charges, to give you an idea, by comparison. A Big Mac has 5 megahertz of energy. Now, before you look at that, maybe I should give you a frame of reference. Each of the organs of your body has a certain amount of energy, electrical energy, that can be measured in megahertz for it to be functioning healthfully. The average of your core organs, like your brain, your heart, your lungs, is 70 megahertz. So just think about this. If you need 70 megahertz of energy, and your primary diet is made up of Big Macs, 5 megahertz, chocolate cake, 1 to 3 megahertz, right? Are you going to be in an energy deficit or an energy abundance? Deficit. And so your energy is going to be low. Now, let me ask you this. If your energy is low, will the organs of your body be working at their total functional peak efficiency, yes or no? So if they're not working at efficiency, and let's say part of that is cleansing or providing what your body needs, then those systems start to shut down and you build up more toxic waste. That's just natural. Your body normally will get rid of, but you're no longer having enough energy to function properly. So you go through this slow decline most people call aging. Does this make sense? So take a look here, if you would, and you'll see some of the other foods we've got here. Vitamins. I mean, most vitamins and mineral supplements are 10 to 30 megahertz, and that's if your body can absorb them. Raw almonds are 40 to 50 megahertz. If you saw me snacking during the break here, I grabbed something, that's raw almonds I have up here. I have cucumbers too, which are super high. Your liver is 55 to 60 megahertz. Your colon, 58 to 63. Your stomach, 58 to 65. Top of your head, 60 to 70. Your feet. So you can see your body's basically in that 60 to 70 range. Fruits do provide, you see this? They provide a lot of energy. They're alive. Green vegetables are the highest, 70 to 90 megahertz. Plus, green vegetables, ladies and gentlemen, are extremely what? Anybody know? Alkaline. We want alkalinity, and green vegetables are some of the most alkaline things you can take into your body. Next is you'll see live, fresh wheatgrass, 70 to 90. Your brain is 72 to 78. How many of you love a rose? Like you get in the presence of a rose or you smell a rose, it just feels really great. How many have that feeling? Say aye. A rose has 320 megahertz coming out of it. It's like you get this charge. All flowers don't do that to you, do they? Some have more than others. And what the feelings you're having are actual electrical charges that you can experience if you measure them. It's fascinating. And then I'm going to show you a green drink that's between 250 and 350 megahertz. When you drink it, you'll feel like an immediate sense of charge of energy because all the charges your cells need are available immediately, plus it's alkaline. So it's available there. Now, how many would agree that the real challenge that most people have is not some bug is attacking them, but the real challenge that they have is their environment has basically been compromised. That they've done things probably in their lifestyle, consciously or unconsciously, that have put the body in a weakened state and has caused the environment to be polluted, and now problems are building on top of each other. How many buy that theory? Say aye. Okay, if you buy that theory, then the question is, how do we get there? How do we get imbalanced? And then the second question, the more important one then is, how do we get that balance back quickly? The first thing that happens that takes us out of balance is there's a disturbance. Now, what could disturb our bloodstreams, disturb our environment? Well, as I start out with again, negative thoughts, negative words, negative actions, those emotions, do they have an impact on our bloodstream, yes or no? Absolutely, and you can feel it, can't you? You know it's visceral. You know your whole body starts to shift when you go in these states. Now, after you have that experience, try adding to that a polluted environment. Do you think breathing, I should say, all the smog in the air makes you alkaline or acid? What would your common sense say? Totally makes you acidic. Okay, now LA's air is a lot better than it was before. Most of the countries is getting better, fortunately, but it still affects us. Acid diets. What's an acid diet? A diet that's made up of animal proteins is acid. A diet made up of a lot of cooked oils is acid. A diet that's made up of a lot of sugar is acid. A diet made up of a lot of carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, like pastas, etc. It's going to have a lot of sugar. Sugar, just think sugar equals acid and acid equals glue. That's a good way for you to think about it. The outside of the red blood cell is a negative charge. That's what keeps them repelling. The inside is positive. But what happens is when you put yourself in a position where you have this acid, it strips that charge, and now these cells start to collect. They start to move and become unhealthy. When they start banging into each other, and you can see it in people's bloodstreams, you can see the difference in what happens there between a healthy bloodstream where the red blood cells are big and plump and alive and round, versus you see these misshapen cells, and you see these cells starting to break down, and very often you see things like parasites starting to break out of the cell, literally. You see it rip out of the cell. It's a very scary thing to see. Radiation can do this. We're in front of these screens all the time, most of us, right? Using computers now. We have all this stuff that we don't know the impact on. So we don't have to live crazily, but we want to avoid any excess radiation, because could that disturb the delicate balance, could it, of the electrical magnetic part of your body? Yes or no? Clearly. So those disturbances start there. And then any kind of other destructive behavior or emotion. Now, once you have a disturbance, think of this. Irritation leads to mutation. Right? That's where it can go. So when something gets irritated, it gets out of balance. It either weakens, dies, or mutates. So irritation leads to mutation. So what happens is when you have a disturbance, the second thing happens is cells become disorganized. They change basically to try and deal with an environment that's different, because life wants to live. I mean, when you even think about cancer cells are cells that are striving to live so much that they can even expand like crazy in an environment where there's no oxygen. So they mutated, and now they're growing more rapidly than you want them to. It's actually life moving forward, and it's adapting to the environment we give it to. So when you disturb yourself, some disturbances are huge. A car accident, is that a significant disturbance to your body? You bet. That ruptures cells. When you rupture cells, do you think there's more acid in the body or less? Quick. More acid. The body's got to deal with that. So much of it can really be a trauma to the system. But when you get disturbances, cells disorganize so they can adapt to this environment. As they do that, the third step is you get a compromised environment. What that means is cells start to really adapt now to this morbid environment, because it's an environment that is not healthy. And all of a sudden now you have healthy cells becoming what? Unhealthy cells. I mean, you can see this under the microscope with people in their bloodstreams. And all of a sudden you have these things called germs that start to grow like crazy, like bacteria and yeast and fungus and molds. Because now you've created an environment in which they can feed. You've created a place where they get to live. Now what's really fascinating, and you'll see this at Mastery, and this will sound insane to some of my doctor friends in the room, but I took Dr. Solomon, who's on the UN board of aging, and he's the head of the Council for Health and Illness, I guess it is, for the United Nations. So also from Johns Hopkins University, he was the head of nutrition there. Traditionally trained guy, and I brought him about 2 months ago. He was supposed to go for 2 hours, because I said, I've seen things in the bloodstream that traditional biology would never say is possible. I've seen a red blood cell literally not be attacked from the outside, but literally when the environment became acid, start to morph and become a rod form, a bacteria. We think of bacteria coming from the outside. Here's this red blood cell like a butterfly, morphing and becoming another kind of cell. And then morphing back later when it went to an alkaline part of the body, back into red blood cell. It's all called on videotape. It's called pleomorphism. It's supposed to be impossible. And he's captured this several times, because this guy's whole focus is the blood. He does everybody's blood, and he studies it and watches it. So I called Dr. Solomon. I said, all I can tell you, I've never felt better in my life. I see my blood is so pure. I've seen my blood go, and now the red blood cells are big and plump because my body's alkaline. I got enough water in the system, not dehydrated. My energy's amazing. I said, I've always had high energy, but not where it was like I had such reserves. That's the best word I can give to you. I have reserve now. Before I could do it, and I was going through my reserves, And I said, come take a look. Fly out for me. He said, okay, I'll go check it out. He said, yeah, I'm going between these 2 places. I'll stop for 2 hours. He stopped for 2 days. And he called me up and he said, this is unbelievable. He said, I want to test that. He's going to do a study at Harvard Medical School. He's trying to arrange one, and at Johns Hopkins, to be able to show the impact that this has on the bloodstream, to show that this has occurred. He wants to be able to duplicate what he's seen. But he said, this is unbelievable, because we always think of the outside world attacking us. He said, what I'm seeing is that the inside environment, just like with HIV they say it, and now they say for these viruses that the reason they can't stop it is because it keeps what? Mutating into something else. Well, our red blood cells de-differentiate and become something else. What happens is this starts to create this buildup of these bacteria, yeast, molds, and guess what they do? They're creatures, right? They're feeding now on your energy stores, and like all living things, they feed on things, and what do all living things also do? They excrete their wastes, and their wastes are pure acid. So not only are you building the acid up from your lifestyle, but you're now creating an environment where these things proliferate and or adapt. Now on top of that, they put their own waste in, which brings you to the fourth level of imbalance. Now you have debilitating acids growing, so that the waste products from those unhealthy cells pollute the environment, and they start to impact the quality of even the healthy cells now. And so more disturbances, more disorganization of cells, worse environment, more acids, and now you're going to what most people think of as debilitating diseases or aging or whatever the case may be. It's an acid problem that comes from disturbance. Now, let me just tell you this. It takes 4 parts of alkalinity to balance out or neutralize 1 part of acid. That's why most people are so acid. So what's neat about the blood and what's neat about the foods is you can see it. You know, it's not this little, oh, I'm going to take this supplement and hope it's okay. I mean, you can see it and you can feel it. You have both experiences. So here's a cycle of balance. Number 1, you must cleanse. How many of you think you've built up some toxicity and some acid through your lifestyle up until now? How many think you're certain about that? Say aye. Trust me, you don't need a blood test to know that, okay? So you got to cleanse. Now, what you want to do is superhydrate your system. Superhydrate means you're going to drink a lot more fluids than you normally do, but you're also going to drink fluids that are alkaline in nature. So you want to drink green drinks. Whether you drink hard drink or not, you can certainly do any other form of green drinks you want. If you go by any of these juicing places, you can get fresh green drinks, and there's all kinds of them that are alkaline, anything you want. But one of the most potent that most of you have heard about is wheatgrass. And the only thing with wheatgrass is it's very concentrated. So you got to make sure you gear up for drinking wheatgrass. And wheatgrass has some benefits in that the chlorophyll in the plant captures the energy of the sun, which is basically life. We have to get that energy ultimately through the system. And so what happens for us is the chlorophyll in the plant is what converts it to energy. And if you look at the molecular structure of wheatgrass, and you look at your own bloodstream, you look at the molecular structure of your blood, it's almost identical. So it's almost like eating the greens or eating the chlorophyll is like taking the blood of the plants that's still alive when it's like that, just like it's giving yourself the ability to build your blood, and it's seen as a blood builder. There's quite a bit of scientific research on it. So you're welcome to drink that, or if you want, get some of this green drink. What's great about it is you can put it in any water you want, wherever you are. You can take it with you on the road, and you can take something. You start to get that place where you haven't eaten, and you're like, your blood sugar's going, you drink that, boom, you're solid. You'll have the fluids that you need, you won't be dehydrated, your blood sugar will be even, and your energy will start sparking because all that electricity, all that energy is available for your body immediately. But what you're going to want to do to cleanse ideally is 7 to 10 days would be the ideal. 7 to 10 days where you would literally go on pretty much a liquid diet. You'd be doing green drinks, green soups. There are a variety of choices in there that you can go through during that time. The minimum you'd want to do is probably 3 to 4 days. We say, I'm just going to cleanse my system. I'm going to give all my organs a break. I'm not going to add more crap on there. I'm going to give them a rest and let my body just flush the system out. This would be the ideal. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do that if you don't want to do that. I'll tell you what to do that's more gentle and more simple, but this type of cleansing is not painful. In fact, you'll start to learn after a few days, if you do the 7 to 10 day one, you'll notice after about day 3, you don't have any hunger at all. In fact, you'll realize if you start to go eat, it's almost like, God, I'm not hungry, and you'll notice you're really doing it because you're frustrated. Or you're really doing it because you feel lonely. Or you're really doing it because there's some other emotion you're trying to feel. And since you're not eating, you won't eat, and you'll notice it, and it'll help you to break the emotional patterns that are controlling you as well. If you wanted to absolutely give your body the ultimate gift, it would be to go on a cleanse. So you want to drink at least 3 liters of this type of green drink a day. 3 liters. Like for me, well, you can see this is what I drink the whole time I'm here, if you haven't noticed. This is it. All weekend long, I'm drinking this. By the way, the green drink doesn't taste bad. It doesn't taste good either. It's kind of neutral, But this size is 1.5 liters. So you're gonna want at least 2 of these a day. I drink one of these in the morning, first thing, total energy. That's what I did this morning. I put the green drink in, shake it up, ready to rock and roll. I'll tell you what else I do. I drink one of these, or at least half, before I eat something. What do you think that does? Hunger's gone, you don't overeat, you also feel more alkaline, so some of the things you'd normally be addicted to, you'll find that addiction starts disappearing really fast. So, we want to cleanse. How many understand what we want to do here? Say I. What's the key word to cleansing? We don't want to hurt our bodies, we want to super what? And by the way, in a cleanse, you would ideally not bring any other food in, right? This super hydration is not just 7 to 10 days, this is every day for me. Does that make sense? If I'm really super hydrating, then for me, I'm drinking 3 of these. Okay, to give you an idea. Maybe even 4 sometimes, which I thought would be impossible. But I'll tell you what, if you do that for just 3 or 4 days, if you guys did nothing out of this day, you said, that Robbins, he's a nice guy, he's a little crazy, but I'll do this for 3 or 4 days. By the 4th day, you won't believe how good you feel. I mean, aches and pains and stuff you have will be gone because you have so much alkalinity in your system, your body will have a buffer to deal with that stuff. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Okay, so we cleanse. Second thing we do to get back in balance is we interrupt the destructive pattern that's creating the problem. So that pattern might be the way you're using your emotions. You go, you know what? I learned all this stuff this weekend. I'm not going to indulge in this anger stuff. I'm doing anger. And I'm doing depression. Let me breathe. Let me change. And you make a shift. Maybe the pattern is you keep eating like hell. Well, you got to break the pattern. Because if we cleanse and then you go back and start doing the same stuff, eventually you'll be back in an acid state again. Does that make sense? Now, by doing all this alkalinity on a regular basis, you start to balance it. But remember, you don't want to build up any more acid than you need to. Then the third step is we need to provide the body what it really needs. Once we take control of those patterns, provide it what it needs. And there's a metaphor. It says every man needs a good woman. In fact, every woman needs a good woman. Like a good mom. Okay? All right? And what woman stands for is you got to give the body what it needs, which number 1 is what? Water. Number 2 is oxygen. Does that sound familiar? Number 3 is minerals. And again, it's not only minerals, but you'll find, how many of you know of a genetic weakness that you have, either by your family history or by yourself, like a heart or lungs or something of that nature? How many are familiar with that? Well, if you know a genetic weakness, you want to provide those minerals or needs directly there, and you can do your own research. You've got A for woman is alkalize, and N is provide the nutrition and diet. What that'll allow you to do is put your body back in balance. When it's in balance, your biochemistry is where it needs to be. The electrical charges are there. The cells are vibrant. They're alive. There's lots of what? Energy. And you start feeling good, being good. You think differently. You feel differently. Your skin changes. Everything shifts in your life when you put yourself back in balance. So how do you get in balance? Number 1 is what? Cleanse. Number 2 is break the pattern by taking control. And number 3 is provide what it is you need. Now, here's what we've done so far. We've freed ourselves, if we're intelligent at this stage, from fear. Because we understand things don't just attack us. We got to create an environment that feeds it. How many buy that? Say aye. 2, we've identified specifically the foundation of this, which is getting out of balance because we create disturbances or we get an environment that disturbs our cells. They disorganize, they get an environment now that's compromised, they mutate, they respond. Those beings or those creatures create their own waste products, and those acids then continue to cycle till we get more and more unhealthy. We know to get balanced, we gotta what? What's the first step? What? Cleanse. I want you to remember that because the way we're gonna live is one that's a cleansing lifestyle, not a clogging lifestyle. All right, we're gonna have that as part of our mindset. Second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take control by interrupting patterns that don't serve us. And third thing is we're gonna provide the body with the core nutrients it needs, a good woman. I doubt if there's anyone who wants to argue everyone doesn't need a good woman in their life, right?